was a summer during middle school where instead of signing up for sports or camp or hanging out with my friends, I signed up for watching Monty Python on the couch with a tub of cheese balls and a beer stein filled to the brim with ice cold Mountain Dew. It was good. I now call it my farmed salmon summer. Let me explain. Salmon come from here, but they also come from here. Unlike most fish we eat, salmon lead a double life. They begin their life in fresh water. They spend their wild middle years running amok in the ocean, and then they return to fresh water to breed and then die. That's dramatic. That's also called an anadromous life cycle, and it leads to wild salmon with really well-developed muscles, moderate amount of fat, and a lot of flavor. On the other hand, we have our farm-raised salmon. Now these are jammed together in a pen with thousands of other fish, and they're given ready access to food. Kind of like cheese ball and Mountain Dew, Dan. And I can speak from personal experience that this kind of lifestyle can have a pretty big impact on physical attributes. So let's talk about fat. All fish have it. White fish like cod store most of it in their liver. Their flesh is nearly fat-free. It's not the case with salmon. They actually store it within their muscle tissue. And you can see it as these thin white lines between bundles of muscle fibers. Those muscle fibers are called myotomes, by the way. And if we zoom in even closer, we can see fine spiderweb-like lines of white fat within those myotomes. We call that intramuscular fat. Almost looks like the marbling on a good steak, right? Well, just like with steak, fat is one of the big reasons that we love salmon so much. Fat provides flavor, tenderness, and richness. But the amount of fat that ends up in your fish has a lot to do with how it grew up. Thanks to the cheese balls and Mountain Dew, easy access to lots of food, farm-raised salmon contain on average more fat than any wild species, and up to 4 times as much as the leanest wild species. But fat isn't the only difference. Our sporty, athletic wild salmon not only have less fat, but they have more developed muscles. The connective tissue in wild salmon, the stuff that holds those muscle fibers together, is a lot more developed in wild salmon. Think of it as scaffolding, and the scaffolding in wild salmon is much stronger. That can lead to flesh that already feels firm before you even cook it. So this isn't just fun fish trivia that you can use on your friends, which I would argue it is. It also has a big impact on how we cook salmon. So let's go to the kitchen. Here is a fillet of sockeye salmon. It's got this gorgeous pinkish red color. Now the pink color in wild salmon comes from something they eat. It's called krill. It's a little shrimp-like crustacean that is packed with a pigment called astaxanthin. Now farm salmon is pink because it's fed a diet that's enriched with synthetic astaxanthin and a related carotenoid pigment called canthaxanthin. If that weren't in their diet, we would have ghost white farmed salmon. Okay, sorry, where was I? So I have a farmed Atlantic salmon fillet and a fillet of wild sockeye salmon. I also have these identical fillets that have been cooked to 125 degrees sous vide. That means they're 125 degrees from edge to edge. Now without even tasting these, we can see that the farm-raised salmon is both juicier and more tender than the wild salmon. Now that's all thanks to more fat and softer flesh. But this doesn't have to be the case. Wild salmon doesn't have to be drier and firmer. In blind taste tests, we found that wild salmon cooked to 120 degrees was just as moist and tender as farm-raised salmon cooked to 125 degrees. So the big lesson here is that you want to cook your wild salmon less. Speaking of cooking, grab some salmon and roast, poach, sous vide, or sear your way to one flavorful meal. Personally, I like mine with crispy skin, a little bit of salsa verde, definitely a glass of white wine, and this is how I like to eat salmon. Did you like that video? Did you learn something? Did you also grow up on cheese balls? If so, hit that subscribe button and we'll see you in the next episode.